In a very weird turn of events, you have Jagmeet Singh doing a complete reversal on everything that he stands for, which would be corruption, greed, but specifically in terms of policies, the carbon tax. He wants to axe the consumer tax, which is very bizarre. And then you have the leech on society. Now, I don't mean this as any disrespect to viewers or people of Quebec. I have a lot of respect for people of Quebec. I just don't respect the Quebec government. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at today in this video, is the fact that the Bloc Québécois, the provincial Quebec leeches, are saying there will not be a pipeline that goes across Canada so long as they have any say in it, which is absurd. Absurd. We are literally held hostage by some Quebec, politicians. It doesn't even make any sense. In fact, the premier of Quebec, not the federal MPs, but the premier of Quebec literally endorses Pierre Poilievre. Says, don't vote Liberals, don't vote Bloc Québécois, vote Pierre Poilievre. So very weird. We're taking a look at that along with a couple of other things, such as another premier who hops the border sort of, and goes and talks to CNN about the tariffs and Tesla boycotts. So you got a lot in this video. I hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And before we get into it, I do want to remind you that if you visit the link down below in the description or the pinned comment below and use code SAVECANADA, you'll get yourself 20% off store-wide merchandise such as all of these stickers. You've got Canada First embroidered hats, hoodies, the whole shebang. Highly recommend you guys go visit it. Without further ado, let's get into this video. Jagmeet Singh is so desperate for votes right now. So desperate that Jagmeet Singh is saying no to the carbon tax. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, who's on a trajectory to not get really any seats, he's going to lose his own riding, is now reversing course minutes ago, as of 2 minutes ago, on the carbon tax. I can't believe it. I'm watching this blind with you. My guy just sent this to me. Let's take a look.
And the way we win this fight against the threats of Donald Trump is not by making Canada more like the United States. That's not how we do this. The way we win this fight is by doubling down on who we are as a country, by doubling down on the values that make us who we are. We believe in taking care of each other. It's a Canadian value. It's why we have things like healthcare. We also believe in taking care of our country, taking care of the land, the air, and the water. Protecting our environment is what makes us Canadian as well. So when we fight back against Donald Trump, we got to fight back by defending what is dear to us, what is true to who we are. And so today we're talking about our plan to defend our environment, to protect our country. Here is just some of the first steps that we would take as a new Democrat government. We would remove the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax, and take off that burden from everyday families.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? This guy said he would never support a Poilievre government. He stands for everything opposite of Pierre Poilievre. And now, because he's projected to not win any seats, he's reversing course on his entire existence, the pillars of his entire existence. And he's saying we need to axe the tax. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is real. We're going to play that again. This is real. All right. I want everyone to right now take the time to hit this like button and subscribe to the channel, because this just happened literally 5 minutes ago while I was doing this live stream. And here we are. And I thought, you know what? Let's throw this in. The people need to see this, even though it just happened. Here we go.
The air and the water. Protecting our environment is what makes us Canadian as well. So when we fight back against Donald Trump, we got to fight back by defending what is dear to us, what is true to who we are. And so today we're talking about our plan to defend our environment, to protect our country. Here is just some of the first steps that we would take as a new Democrat government. We would remove the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax.
Oh my
take
goodness.
Off that burden from everyday families.
This guy rejected not one, not two, but 3 different votes of non-confidence all around the carbon tax because he thought, you know what, Canadians don't deserve a tax break. And now here he is a few months later going, we're removing the carbon. We want to remove the carbon tax. What a freaking snake, man. I am so sick and tired of Jagmeet Singh.
But we would make sure big polluters pay their share. This is very important. And one of the things that we want to do, and the part of the plan I want to talk about today, is the fact that your hard-earned public money is being given to highly profitable oil and gas companies. They're receiving massive subsidies every year. That has to end. New Democrats would once and for all end those subsidies. They must end. And we would use that money instead of giving it to highly profitable oil and gas companies. Instead, we would give supports to everyday families because that's who we're in it for. We're not in it for the billionaires like the other parties. We're in it for you and your family. So we would cancel those subsidies and use that money to give everyday families the ability to retrofit their homes, to lower their energy costs, to save them money and reduce their emissions. That's a plan that works for people, not for the billionaires.
All right, that's enough of Jagmeet Singh right now. That guy is so irrelevant. I can almost guarantee you Jagmeet Singh will not be around much longer. After this election, I feel like that's it. He's absolutely done.
President Trump, meanwhile, spoke with the new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, last week. I want to get your take on this. Kevin, he posted about the meeting. He said it was an extremely productive call. We agree on many things, and we'll be meeting immediately after Canada's upcoming election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors that will end up being great for both the United States of America and for Canada. The call, of course, came after Carney bashed Trump and his tariffs earlier in the day. Watch this.
We will fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impacts here in Canada. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
What do you think, Kevin? It certainly feels like Canada and the U.S.'s relationship has changed in a big way. We did a story earlier in the show about how Canadians
has it ever.
Real estate in Florida right now.
The anti-U.S. rhetoric is being stirred up by Carney because his party
that's right.
devastated the country over the last 10 years. And the only way he can stay in power is to convince people he's the solution against Trump. So the rhetoric has never been hotter. And, of course, he's 5 weeks away from an election, so he'll stir the pot any way he can. But let's not forget where Carney came from. He is a global elitist. He's a supporter of carbon taxes. He said he'll remove them from consumers, but he's going to double down on business in Canada, and that decimated. You got to remember, Canada actually only grew under the Liberal Party 1.4% in 10 years. The economy's been wiped out. One of the reasons Canadians can't go to Florida is his party wiped out the value of the dollar, down 41%. Canadians can't afford to go to Disneyland anymore. So Carney's doing it the very best he can to say, look, I will save you against Trump. And he throws the rhetoric out every day against him, a man named Pierre, who's also trying to be elected as a conservative. They're both in a crazy rhetoric, an anti-American rhetoric, that will go away the minute this election's over. He will get on a plane, whoever wins, fly to Washington, and start working on what I call NAFTA 3, which is the right thing to do. I might add that Senator Kennedy in Louisiana gave an eloquent presentation about why tariffs between Canada and the United States should be zero. I listened to it. It made a whole lot of sense to me, and I think it'll make a lot of sense to the Canadian people as well as soon as this election is over. Will Carney win? Who knows? But he's backtracked like crazy on all the Liberal parties. Whether people trust him or not will be the determination, because he certainly was he advised Trudeau for the last 5 years.
Yep.
So the idiot king is gone, but is Carney any better? Nobody knows yet.
Well, he's significantly worse. Turns out that Mark Carney was in charge of freezing the bank accounts of all the people that donated to the Freedom Convoy. So is Mark Carney worse? Yeah, he's significantly worse than Justin Trudeau. Holy smokes, man. And now he allows bounty hunting in Canada as long as it benefits him.
let me get your take before we go, Kevin, on these tariffs. The president's reciprocal tariffs will kick in on Wednesday at midnight. What are you expecting? Obviously, markets are, hyper nervous about this, and we're seeing some companies unable to give us a real guidance for the 2025 calendar year because they don't know what it's going to cost them. How do you think this lands?
I take the positive view, Maria. I believe this is the beginning of a negotiation. 17 states in America, their largest trading partner is Canada. 75% of Canadian output is purchased by Americans. It would be stupid for these two countries to go to war together, not when they've been married for over 100 years. This is a tiff. It's a marriage, and they're having a little tiff. That's what I say. So as soon as this election's over, which is unfortunate for the Canadian people right now, the negotiations will begin. We should have no tariffs on the 49th parallel. It should be an open market and the best companies win. That's combining the two economies to everybody's benefit. That would be a behemoth that China could never catch up with.
Incredible.
Right. We'll be watching. We'll see.
I mean, I agree with that. Stop the trade wars, stop the tariffs. Let's all start working together, right? I mean, that's how we combat China. That's how we combat the eastern part of the world, is by the West working together.
In the freezing rain! A group of protesters braved the weather in Montreal to send Tesla CEO Elon Musk a message.
I've sold all of my Tesla stock because I do not believe what he's doing is right. And I want people to know that they shouldn't buy his products because that's the best way to influence and provide a consequence to the actions that he's done.
Ho, ho! Elon Musk has got to go!
The rally in Montreal was part of a weekend of protests at Tesla dealerships around the world to call out Musk and his association with the Trump administration.
We can't protest Donald Trump right now because he doesn't have a Trump Tower in Saskatoon. So I think this is the next closest thing. I'm personally outraged that these guys talk about annexing Canada as if it's a trivial matter.
In January, Musk called then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau Canada's governor in a social media exchange. The protesters are also upset with Musk's efforts to shrink the U.S. federal government. As the head of the U.S. Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, he slashed budgets and jobs. The protesters say that includes departments and agencies tasked with investigating and regulating his companies like Tesla.
I think what Elon Musk is doing is just incredibly bad for the U.S., for Canada, for the world.
People here say Tesla also tried to take advantage of Canada. Ottawa recently froze its access to an EV rebate program after the company reportedly filed more than 8,600 claims in 3 days in January, for a total of $43 million. Transport Minister Chrystia Freeland has directed the ministry to ensure Tesla vehicles won't be eligible for future rebates as long as U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods remain in place.
And I'm very happy that the government has stepped in.
People are starting to realize that a brand is more than a logo and it's more than an advertisement.
This marketing professor says that calls to boycott Tesla are having an impact.
Elon Musk by himself has lost about a third of his net worth.
We reached out to Tesla for comment, but didn't hear back. Musk did address the issue in a recent interview with Fox News.
My companies are suffering because I'm in the government,
where he maintained that Tesla is being unfairly targeted.
These people are nuts. These are the same people that are saying we need to switch to electric vehicles because climate change and the world is burning and all this nonsense. I mean, which is it? Right? Are we only switching to electric vehicles where they have, the logo of the vehicles and LGBTQSLI plus flag? I mean, this doesn't make any sense at all. All of Quebec is going to block, kind of funny. They're going to literally put up blockades and not allow a pipeline to go through their province. So we have so much oil in this country, and we need to be able to ship it outside of this country, outside of the United States. So we need a pipeline that goes from the West Coast, or specifically Alberta, all the way to the East Coast. And that's going to require going through Quebec. Everybody is on board with this. It's a phenomenal idea. Even Mark Carney is on board with this. The Liberals are going, we're going to make the pipeline happen. The only people that don't seem on board with this is the Bloc Québécois, funny enough. So we're going to take a look now at how the Bloc Québécois puts their foot down and say, no pipeline is going to happen under our watch.
our answer is the same, will always be the same. There's nothing for us in it. There's nothing for the planet in it. There's no project. There's no promoter. There's nothing on the table. The only thing that there is on the table is the intention of the two main leaders, Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilievre, to get some votes in Western Canada. This pipeline would cost several times tens of billions of dollars, a large part of which would come from public money through any kind of scheme. And it would provide nothing for Quebec economy. We would pay.
That's where he's significantly wrong. It would provide nothing for the Quebec economy. So I'm just going to put a pin in what he's saying right now and make reference to my post on X from last week, where I said Quebec is the laziest province in all of Canada. They are a leech on our country. If they don't separate, they should be voted off the island. And I'm making a reference to equalization payments. So out here on the left side, you can see $0 for BC, for Alberta. You see Saskatchewan, 0 or zero. You see Manitoba, 4.7 billion. You see Ontario with 546 million. You see Quebec with $13.6 billion in equalization payments. All of that money comes from Alberta's oil and gas. That's absolutely absurd. Quebec is literally a leech on our entire economy. So when he says there's no benefit for us, well, I suppose if you don't want any more equalization payments, or if you want to stay a part of Canada, then you better shut up and do what you're told. This guy right here, this party, is disgusting. They are literally preventing us from thriving, from moving forward. They're dead weight. That's my opinion. That's nothing to the Quebec people. That's just how I personally feel about the politics and the parties in Quebec.
So last year Canada paid $30 billion to the oil and gas industry. $7 billion from Quebecers' money. Those families paid for that. And after they paid for the repairs, they paid for the consequences of climate change. When they say that it's good for our economy, I say, where can you find such numbers? We pay for oil, we pay for gas, we pay for the repairs.
You get so much free money.
Dollars per person in Quebec and in Canada for a project which has no meaning and no future, whatever they say, and whatever intent they might have to become Americans. I don't mind. Europe does not want it. It could not be built in less than 8 to 10 years. It would arrive in Europe and be imposed tariff on pollution. There's nothing serious in that project but the fantasy of gaining votes.
Oh my goodness, man. Just an absolute cockroach on our society. These people, they need to be Zelensky'd. Remember that whole thing where Trump had Zelensky in the Oval Office and said, "You haven't even said thank you, buddy. You come just like that? Come on," right? Like, that's what needs to happen to Quebec. You guys haven't even said thank you, right? Like, they need to be kicked out, man. Or something needs to happen, because Quebec needs to get off their ass and start selling more poutines and cheese curds and maple syrup, because they are not providing enough to this country, and they are blocking the future prosperity of this country for political reasons. There is nothing wrong with the pipeline. It's extremely safe. Canada's standards for everything is so freaking high that we have analysis through paralysis, or paralysis through analysis, where we spend so much time and money and resources invested in just a bunch of nerds looking at the situation going, okay, well, it seems here, let me just put my glasses up, that if we do this and do that, and all of a sudden now we've gone through our entire budget, making sure that it's so safe that it never even gets done. It's absolutely insane. Trump, who says that he's not ruling out a third U.S. presidency term. Kind of interesting.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump says he's not ruling out a third term as president.
I have had more people say, please run again.
He made this comment over the weekend, saying he's not joking about finding a way to run for a third term. The U.S. Constitution bars such a move. Trump and his allies have said there are methods to achieving it anyway.
There are methods. Hey, I've said it from the beginning of him running. I think that in order for him to fix America, chances are he's gonna run for more than another term. I just think it's gonna happen. I don't know the legalities between it, but I think that he's going to do it. And I think the American people are frankly going to embrace it. And speaking of embracing, you've got Danielle Smith, who met with Ben Shapiro down in Florida. So let's take a look at what came out of that.
Premier Danielle Smith says a recent podcast proves her trip to Florida made an immediate impact on Americans and the pursuit of curbing tariffs. On Thursday, Smith attended a fundraiser for PragerU in Florida, where she says she reiterated her message that tariffs are bad for both U.S. consumers and Canadians. Podcaster Ben Shapiro was also part of that fundraiser. The next day, he released an episode critical of tariffs to millions of followers. Smith says Shapiro's podcast has a large reach, and it is good that he's using it to tell a mostly Republican audience that tariffs are bad because of the long list of goods that come from Canada.
When you get someone like Ben Shapiro talking about how Saskatchewan has 20% of the world's supply of uranium, why don't we buy it from Saskatchewan? And that they supply 85% of the potash to the United States so that their crops will grow. And when you have him talking about how they need to get 60% of their aluminum from Quebec, that is mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned.
Smith also says she saw a Canadian government billboard along a Florida highway that said tariffs are a tax on Americans. She says we need more of that kind of messaging.
Right. I personally would like to see more Canadian MPs and Canadian politicians going on like massive channels like Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, Patrick Bet-David, Stephen Crowder, things like that. What I don't want to see is more politicians rushing to CNN. And that's unfortunately what we're going to be taking a look at next. The Newfoundland and Labrador Premier, Andrew Furey, well, he rushes to CNN to talk about tariffs. Let's take a little look-see-poo.
First of all, how would you like to see Canada respond to yet another round of Trump tariffs?
Well, I think it's important, Wolf, for people and your viewers to understand that Canadians never asked for any of this. We're left often confused, frustrated at times, angered and upset by this round of tariffs. And Canadians, by and large, understand that tariffs are not going to win on the northern border. They're not going to win south of the border. It's going to be a loss-loss situation. So we're very frustrated, very concerned from a macroeconomic perspective, but also from a microeconomic perspective as well. We see this as being and will be incredibly punitive to consumers on both sides of the border. Again, setting up a lose-lose situation. So Canadians are frustrated, they're concerned, but they will be responsive. And I do believe the conversations I've had with the Prime Minister and the United Team Canada front has been strong and firm in recognizing that we do have a position of strength. The economies are integrated for a reason, and it's not just geographic adjacency, it's the shared resources. Canada is plentiful and bountiful in natural resources that can provide the United States manufacturing jobs, it can grow their economy, it can grow our economy jointly together. That's why it's worked so well for so long. But make no mistake, we will be proportional, and we'll be responsible, and we'll be Canadian in our response.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the Liberals have been pushing this weird rhetoric that being Canadian and being patriotic means being anti-American. And I, for one, don't stand with that. I don't appreciate that. I don't condone that. I don't support that. I don't particularly like these tariffs and trade war that our countries are going through right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to turn into an anti-American person. That's just not who I am. I've worked with Americans in the military. We've shed blood, sweat, and tears historically through many, many, many years and many battles. That doesn't make any sense to be anti-American right now because of a silly trade war.
Canada's new prime minister, as you know, Premier, we're talking about Mark Carney, has blasted the Trump tariffs in very blunt words, saying the close ties between the two countries, in his words, are over. Listen and watch this.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
Do you see the relationship between the U.S. and Canada permanently altered? I ask the question because for me, it's really hard to believe how U.S.-Canadian relations have deteriorated. These were the two closest of allies, and now all of a sudden we hear words like this, strong words like this from the new prime minister.
So first of all, let me say that Canadians are unpackaging this tariff war in two ways. First of all, there's the economic fiscal issues with respect to tariffs, and albeit I believe that to be illogical. But then there is the blunt language from the President of the United States with respect to our sovereignty, our independence. Canada wants to work with the United States, but we do not want our independence, our sovereignty, our values, our Canadian way of life attacked in any way, shape, or form. And we feel threatened by an imperialistic, expansive agenda by the President of the United States. That said, Wolf, we recognize that this is not every American. In fact, it's likely only a handful of Americans who hold this view. And Canadians are mature enough, they're understanding enough to realize that while we have to steal a hockey analogy, we have to have our elbows up right now.
Oh, give me a break.
That hopefully this game and this period will pass and we can rebuild a constructive relationship. I was very encouraged for the first time since the president was elected to hear him refer to our prime minister, regardless of political stripe, our prime minister, our sovereign head of our country as prime minister once again. Since December, he's been referring to that position and that person as governor. And that is insulting and offensive to Canadians.
Governor, because he pretends that Canada is going to be the 51st state of the United States. He used to call Prime Minister Trudeau governor, 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 not premier or prime minister. It's really very, very... This
is a classic example of you can dish it, but you can't take it, right? And the Canadians that are bothered by America by Trump specifically referring to our prime minister as governor, our media has attacked Trump, attacked other American figureheads with way worse things, called them Hitler, called them a Nazi, called them so many different things. So him referring to our leader as governor, if you don't find humor in that, if that's actually deeply offensive, then I suggest, who said it? Who said it best? Carney did. That you look inwards, to yourself. Because, I mean, look, yeah, sure, it's not very nice, but Canadian media and our freaking prime ministers have said some mad things about President Trump in the past. So referring to our guy as governor, I mean, it's not the worst thing that's been said.
Insulting to Canada, indeed. How are Canadians reacting on a personal level to these kinds of comments?
So it's incredibly hurtful. I can speak personally, as a father and who married an American. For me, this is actually very personal. I did some of my surgical training in Baltimore, Maryland. My daughter was born in Baltimore. She's a natural citizen. She could be president of the United States someday. Obviously, I married an American. I have all my children are dual citizens. So it's confusing and hurtful for me as an individual, but Canadians at large are incredibly offended. There is a moment of national unity and pride in the country of Canada that I have not seen in my entire life. And I do think that we are worried about the rhetoric from the President of the United States. But make no mistake, the sovereignty of our independent, proud nation will never be jeopardized. What's confusing, Wolf, is that the relationship has been so strong. I mean, here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we welcomed 10,000 stranded passengers during 9/11. We've fought side by side in 2 world wars in Korea and Afghanistan, and would continue to kind of grow that relationship because it's built on shared values of democracy, of freedom, of independence, and of justice. And to see that being eroded is very troublesome to Canadians.
Yeah. I've always considered Canada to be America's #1 closest NATO ally, and to see this relationship deteriorate as it has over these past few months is really depressing. And as a young boy growing up in Buffalo in Western New York on the border with Canada, I used to go to a lot of Buffalo Sabres hockey games, and before all of the games, not only did they play the U.S. national anthem, they played "O Canada," because almost all of the hockey players were Canadians. And I used to wonder, why are they playing "O Canada" in the United States? And that's what my dad and my friends always explained to me. Canada's a separate country, but so many of the players are Canadians, and we have to honor them. It was just something I grew up with in Buffalo.
Yeah. It's the most important relationship in the world.
It very much is a very good relationship. Like, objectively speaking, it's so hard to disagree. I don't know if there's two other countries out there that have a better relationship than what America and Canada has. I mean, we have a lot of financial benefits. Like, you can invest in registered investments here in your like RSP, and you don't pay you don't pay the dividends tax bracket on American stocks and stuff like that. It's treated tax-free gains as if it's Canadian investments. Like, we have a lot of benefits. We've got our duty free, we've got our border, it's pretty relaxed, all things considered, right? We have so many benefits between Canada and America relations. Yet everything that's happening right now, it is very, very, very unfortunate. Extremely unfortunate. But a lot of this has been exacerbated by Canadian politicians. This whole like elbows, what the hell does elbows up even mean? I played hockey my entire life. I've never once heard a coach or another player say, okay guys, it's time for elbows up. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's keep your head up. Keep your head up, but no one encourages dirty hockey playing. That's actually dirty. For when someone comes in for a body check, you keep your elbow up. You're supposed to actually keep your shoulder up, not your elbow. But anyways, very bizarre. So this has been exacerbated. The flames have been fumed by our own politicians, by literally saying, go out and boo American anthems, go and boycott American products, rip American products off your shelves. Like, this is a political feud right now. It's super, super bizarre. Everything these days seems to be politicized. Everything. It's just so disgusting. Like, I can't wait for a time where we just go back to being normal. Just white picket fence, kids playing hockey in the streets. We're chanting, "Oh, Canada." We're finishing the American anthem for when there's a comms issue. Like, I just can't wait for that to come back, man. I'm so sick and tired of this. Like, just, it feels like our blood is always boiling. Am I the only one that feels that way? I feel like we're all going to die earlier than we should because we're just so filled with hatred and rage constantly, every day. And it's our news. It's our politicians. They're fueling it. Day after day.
Example how neighbors can work together, and that doesn't exist throughout the geopolitical context. It has been to date a beacon of hope, a beacon of democracy, the strength of our partnership in protecting not just North America but the world. And I have to believe, Wolf, that we will get through this. And while Canadians are angered and offended, particularly by the attack on our sovereignty, confused and frustrated by the economic issues, but more concerned and by the attack on our independence. I have to believe that once this rhetoric settles, and once rational, logical, mature heads prevail, that the strong historic friendship between the United States and Canada can not only be resolved, but be strengthened.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, summarizes the entire video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and comments about any of the topics that were covered down below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.